So I mentioned this morning we have an honored guest in Senator Durbin, and it's fitting that we recognize 2 decades in the process to end Duchenne. And Senator Durbin has been in it from the start. In his role, Senator Durbin helped set the agenda for the Senate, including whether legislation like the MD Care Act will be debated by the Senate. He was first elected to the Senate in 1996. Senator Durbin has been reelected 3 times and is seeking his 4th term this November. So if you're from Chicago, this is the man. Prior to coming to the Senate, he spent more than 20 years in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was first elected in 1982. And while in Congress, Senator Durbin has been a leading voice on public health and medical research issues. Many of you arrived here via plane. Well, Senator Durbin led the efforts to ban smoking on airplanes and end tobacco marketing to youth. And we already know that smoking for our sons, even secondhand smoke, is really detrimental. Last year, Senator Durbin introduced legislation called the American Cures Act that recognizes the critical importance of medical research to the future health of our nation. This legislation would establish a trust fund to establish resources for the National Institutes of Health, which, by the way, fund the Wellstone Centers, and other agencies that support medical research. American Cures would help reverse the negative impact and declining appropriations we've had on our research programs and would set a stronger and more reliable funding course going forward. The Duchenne community would benefit immensely from the American Cures, and we commend Senator Durbin for advancing this visionary proposal. We also deeply appreciate the Senator's efforts with the NIH, the CDC, and the FDA, investments in Duchenne research, public health, and access strategies. And I think we all could agree that based on what Senator Durbin has done for our sons and for health and science, we want to award him this year the 2014 Change a Champion Award from PPMD. Senator Durbin.
Pat, thank you very much. And thank you for being here. I know some of you are from Illinois and many from different parts of the country who came here for this important weekend in your life and the life of your family and the life of those that you love. I hope you enjoy our city. Chicago is a wonderful city, and I hope that your families enjoy it as well. I want to recognize a couple people. Nancy Kuntz, I believe, may be here. Is Dr. Nancy Kuntz here? There she is in the back. Doctor, Director of the Duchenne Clinic at Lurie Children's Hospital, involved in important clinical studies. Thank you very much for being here, Doctor. We appreciate that. And I know that Dr. Beth McNally is here because she came up and said hello from Oak Park, Illinois. She's at the University of Chicago. She's director of one of the Wellstone Centers for DMD. The Wellstone Centers, as you know better than most, sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, named after a man I served with in the Senate, Paul Wellstone of Minnesota. Paul, his wife, his daughter, and 3 of their campaign aides were killed in a small plane crash 10 years ago. It's hard to believe it's that long. Paul used to say, "I didn't get elected to fight for the Rockefellers. They already have people looking out for them. I'm fighting for the little fellers." That was Paul. And one of the things that we've done to honor him is to make sure these centers are there to help many families. You look at Washington and you think, can they get anything right? And I understand the feeling. Let me tell you 2 things that we need to get right. One of them is a work in progress. It's the question of health insurance. If you have ever been at a moment in your life, a parent with a sick child with no health insurance, you'll never forget it as long as you live. Happened to me. My wife and I got married when I was still in law school. God sent us a little baby girl right away, and she had some pretty serious health challenges. And we didn't have any health insurance. I used to leave the law school classroom, get in the car, drive home, pick up Loretta and Chris, and go to Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., where I was going to law school, into the charity ward and be given a number, waiting to see who would come through that door to treat my daughter. I never felt more helpless in my life. I didn't have anything. I had no health insurance and no protection. So when the national debate started over health insurance, there were several things, very personal things, that came to my mind. First, I didn't want anyone to ever be in that position again. I want to extend the reach of health insurance and the peace of mind, which most of us now have, to everybody in this country. I think that's part of the fundamental right we have in this country. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that families like mine with a sick child were not discriminated against when it came to health insurance premiums. To discriminate against a family because of a pre-existing condition and one of the members of the family really makes health insurance, or did, beyond the reach of most families. And so we passed the Affordable Care Act. Is it perfect? The only perfect law I know was carried down the side of a mountain on clay tablets by Senator Moses. The rest of our efforts are good efforts, but they can be improved upon, and we can improve on this law. But the fundamental premise is sound. Health insurance for everyone in America, health insurance regardless of your medical situation in life or the situation in your family. I hope you agree that that should be the basic of the values that we put on the table as we debate the future of the Affordable Care Act. The second issue is one that you know better than I do, because you follow it like many people follow baseball every single day. You search that paper, the magazines, watch television. Did somebody mention Duchenne? What was that? Did you hear that? What was it? Well, the issue is medical research. Yesterday in my office in Washington, Francis Collins came to see me. If I have a handful of heroes in this world, Francis Collins is one of them. A medical doctor, head of the National Institutes of Health. He's incredible. He was given the job of mapping the human genome. He did it ahead of time, below budget. And he opened up doors that we thought were unimaginable, looking into ourselves and our bodies and how they work. And now he heads the National Institutes of Health. And about 3 months ago, I went out to see him. And I sat down at a table with the 6 heads of his institutes at the National Institutes of Health, and we talked about medical research in America. And I said to him, how are we doing? Well, he said, a lot of great things are happening. But he said, there are some troubling things as well. Over the last 10 years, we have reduced the amount of money for medical research grants at the NIH by 22%. 22%. We have failed to keep up with inflation at the National Institutes of Health. It means that instead of 1 out of every 3 research grants being approved, it's 1 out of 6. It lessens our chances by half of finding breakthroughs in medical research. But he said there's something even more worrisome. What's even more worrisome is this statistic. 30 years ago, the medical investigators at the National Institute of Health under the age of 36 were 19%. 1 out of 5 under the age of 36, 30 years ago. Today, 3% under the age of 36. They don't believe we care enough. They don't believe we're committed enough. They're not prepared to commit their lives in medical research if we're not prepared to commit resources to the effort. And so I said to Dr. Collins, okay, we're in tough times. We've got a budget deficit. What is the rock bottom of what you need to put this NIH effort moving forward in the right way? He said it's basic. We need to have 5% real growth, 5% real growth in our research, medical research, every single year, beyond inflation. It would apply to the NIH, Center for Disease Control, and medical research at the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. And so I wrote up the bill. And as Pat said, it's called the American Cures Act, because that's what I'm looking for. Cures in America for so many diseases that we can cure. And I've introduced it. I have about 11 co-sponsors. And if you think it's important, if you'd like to encourage your elected officials, please tell them join me. Make this a big effort, a bipartisan effort. What will it cost, Durbin? Great idea. You politicians come up with them all the time. Over the span of 10 years, it will cost us $140 billion. A huge amount of money, $140 billion. Perspective. Last year on Alzheimer's, we spent in Medicare and Medicaid over $200 billion. There is an Alzheimer's diagnosis handed down every 68 seconds in America. This is a bow wave of obligations and costs that we can see coming in a huge fashion. If the NIH could find a way to delay the onset for 4 months, or God bless, a cure Think of what it would mean in terms of savings and in terms of sparing people of human misery. Think of your own situation and your own challenge with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. These are opportunities that we should seize, and I think we can. We're a great nation. We lead the world in medical research. We're losing our edge and losing our lead. We can't let that happen. I don't think this is a Democratic issue. I don't think it's a Republican issue. I don't think it's an independent issue, because the kids that are hit with Duchenne come from families of all political faiths, and that's the fact. So I need to ask you, in addition to everything else you need to worry about, the next time one of these politicians comes your way from Washington, ask them what they're doing for medical research, and ask them if they're prepared to make a commitment, at least 5% real growth in medical research for 10 years in all of these different areas. You know, when I was little, I'm about to give away my age, but when I was little, it was a big fear of an iron lung. It was a big fear of polio. And I can remember it well. Nobody knew what was going on out there. Why are kids contracting polio? How are they becoming crippled? Why are they put in these iron lungs? Parents had theories. My mother thought it was the rainwater standing in the street. Don't you dare play in the puddles. That was her best guess. And people were guessing in every direction. And there I was in grade school, and across America, the news came out that a man named Jonas Salk had discovered something, a polio vaccine. We knew we had to get stuck with a needle, but to think we'd never have to worry again about it really made a big difference. It was celebrated across the United States. Thank God Sabin came in with an oral dosage. But the fact is, we now have reached the point where we're down to only 2 nations on earth with polio. We are eradicating this disease. We can do these things. Jonas Salk didn't quit with polio. He spent the rest of his life doing research in HIV and AIDS in the latter part of his life. He said, and I quote him, he said, "We only lose if we quit too soon." We can't quit on medical research for your families, for your children, for families all across America who count on it. So Washington, get it right. Let's have health insurance coverage for every family. Let's have the kind of medical research that gives us all hope that tomorrow will be a better day for our kids. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. So I'll say it again. If you're from Chicago, if you have relatives in Chicago, they deserve a letter. And every other legislator should sign on to the American Cures Act. We worry because you can ask John Porter, Glenn Knuckles, and the folks that have fought for Duchenne muscular dystrophy research at the NIH. They see it slipping. They see good research being unable to be funded because budgets are slipping. So I think Senator Durbin is amazing and wonderful, and we're so thankful he's come. But this is where policy comes into place, and this is where we all can do something. And this is an important one.